Alright, so today we're going to be putting together, reassembling a LC Smith single barrel trap. This gun, based on the serial number, was manufactured around the mid-20s. It's just an absolutely beautiful gun. A lot of all this was factory hand engraving and all machined out of a solid piece of steel. So just a beautiful, beautiful piece of work that was done here. I went ahead and reassembled this. If you do remove this, you're just going to tap it out from inside. You'll just use a punch, and you'll come and you'll drive this pin out, and then this will be remaining. Probably would not remove that. I did remove mine just to clean everything out in here, but probably if you don't have to take that off, I wouldn't. When you do put this back on, I suggest you press it in. That's how I did it. I didn't have any problems. I just used a press, had pieces of wood on either end, and then was able to just press this on without any problem. All right, so the first step in this process is put in the lug. Very interesting, the way this works is this actually, I guess the slogan was it never wears out. So as this moves into the barrel lug, that actually keeps everything tight. The only piece on here, as you start to reassemble this, pay careful attention down in here. This actually sets down in here. If this isn't in here like this, you'll know it simply won't assemble back on your top lever. So make sure you get this positioned in there correctly. So we'll go ahead, and I am just going to be pretty liberal with my grease. I'll end up coming back and cleaning some of this off later on. We'll go ahead and run this, and we'll go ahead and get this started here. Now on this particular one, it looked like what they did is they drove this through. They flattened this out in here so that this pin wouldn't come out, although I am going to shoot this gun. This isn't going to be a shooter, so I'm not going to do some of the things here, but if you were going to shoot it, when you finish driving this all the way through, you'd want to go ahead and flatten out that screw so it doesn't work its way loose. Be sure and put in your firing pin, of course. You don't want to, at some point, you don't want to leave this guy out. All right, next what we're going to do is go ahead and add in this top. This is going to be for your lever spring, which we'll put in just a moment. And then from here we'll go ahead and reassemble or assemble back on this post. So for the spring, to get this to be compressed, this is where we'll use one of the first tools that I had to make to compress the spring. What we'll do is we'll just come over here. And what I did was I just turned a piece of aluminum to diameter, drilled it out, put in about a 1/8 45 degree it. And what that does is on this pin, it keeps it from sliding off. So as it sets in there, it keeps it from sliding off and gives me enough room, then grooved it out so that this can go down in there. Alright, so now you got your top lever spring. I'll go ahead at this point and finish this up and go ahead and assemble up. This is your top lever latch to hold it open, and it's going to go in like in this direction here. And what this does is as you cock the gun, it holds the lever. It's going to go in there just like that. And it's going to rest right there. And from there you can go ahead and put the spring on. And this is just spring loaded in here to where screw it in. Okay. So at that point now then, you've got your lever, top lever assembly finished. And you've got your, you can see right here where that's going to be your top lever. So as you open this guy up, it's going to hold it open until you depress this, and then that let your barrel come back down. So your lever's going to come in there and it's going to catch like that. So that's how that works. And as your barrel shuts down, it pushes that lever and allows your gun to close. So at that point, you are finished. Now this next step, I'll be honest with you, this top spring up here, you could have probably pulled this down and put it in there. I preferred to make this tool. Like I said, it just helped me compress the spring and put it in there. I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on the spring, especially when you press it down, it goes bonking out somewhere. So on this next one here, we'll take a look at maybe these tools later on, but what I did was I needed to compress this spring. Right, so this is your spring and this is the original cap. I needed to compress the spring to where I was able to put my hammer in without any pressure on the hammer, so that I could slide my pin in. Now this pin should go through very easily by hand without any problem. So one of the problems I ran into was when you cock this back, this pinhole right here is ideally where this pin will come in and it'll catch this cap, so that then you can reassemble your hammer, and then you recompress the spring just enough to where you can remove this. So I know that some of the Parker enthusiasts aren't going to like this, but what I did was I borrowed the idea from a Parker. I was never able to compress this. I could have got it in there, but I did not want to use brute force to get this pin and the fire hammer together. So what I needed to do is compress the spring, catch it. So all this, I remachined this. This is a drill rod, heated and water cooled, and then I drew it back out with some heat until it turned blue, and then polished it. And you'll notice I put a groove in here. So this is going to be a lot like the Parkers. On their plungers, they have a groove in their pin in the plunger, so that you can put a punch in there or pin in there to hold that, so that you can reassemble this, and then you can reapply some pressure to remove that to put the spring on it. So again, I'm not sure how they did that at the factory. I spent a considerable amount of time on that one, so I just made this tool. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and assemble this. I really don't need this in here at this time, but I'll just move that out of my way. Right, so first step, I turned a piece of aluminum, grooved. Originally, what I was trying to do here was with the original cap on this, what I was trying to do was, once I compressed it, I grooved it out so that then I could remove this. But I was never able to find a way to keep that spring compressed to where then once I was ready to release the tension, to take the tension off the spring. I measured out the stirrup on this and my cap, and everything seemed to be measured correctly. So I don't know what they did at the factory and how they went about it. So I just redesigned the part. Like I said, this is not necessarily going to be a shooter that will shoot the gun, but I have no idea what they were doing, and I was not going to take any chances of damaging my spring and cap there, and primarily the stirrup. I didn't want any pressure coming back and popping down on that stirrup and breaking it. So there you go. I redesigned it for my purposes. What I'm going to do is, before I get this in there, Alright, so then I left a little bit of room over here so that I could see what I was doing. And I got to, after I tempered the steel, I left it a little bit blue so I can see as it passes through that hole. And then put my punch in there. Take the pressure through with this. Now I can go ahead and assemble my hammer. This, remember, you're going to have a groove here for your pin stop on this so that this doesn't slide out, so be sure to get that lined up correctly. Be about right there, close enough. So at this point now then, what we'll do is apply enough pressure on this end, pulling this hammer back. And you'll see that pin, the punch, once I get enough pressure on it, I don't have to do much. That punch will just about fall out, or I'll just pull it out. Okay, so at this point now then, what we'll do is we'll just lower the hammer back down, go in the reverse direction. One of the things on my design here, on this spring or this wire here, I'm actually going to redesign that just a little bit so that when I lower this, it keeps that wire up off the receiver, making it just a little bit easier so it doesn't get stuck in there anywhere. It should be free on both ends. Looks like it is. So I'll go ahead and finish taking the pressure off of this. Now you might be wondering then, now that I've done this, you know, how are you going to get this off for the oops, put that there. So how are you going to get this out of here? So what you'll end up doing is, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could raise this hammer back up. What I'm going to do is just reassemble the gun, and at that point then I'll be able to manually cock it to where I can remove this, or I could just cut that if I wanted to. I'm not going to cut it, I'll stay green. But this is the process then that you go back through to reassemble this L.C. Smith single barrel trap. Now I know that this was probably a little bit of an overkill. Maybe I just pulled it out and let it snap back, I don't know, but in it being that I don't have parts, I was extremely careful with regards to redoing this and putting everything back. 8/32 here, these are 10/32, so everything is standard. That was pretty nice. You pretty much go out to Ace Hardware and pretty much get any hardware dies or taps to do whatever you need to do there on that. You can get all these parts over at Ace Hardware. This is just some 1/8 angle iron, steel rod, just some angle 1/8 steel, and then I just bent these, turned this on my lathe, and then drilled and tapped for the threads. So that was pretty standard forward. Originally, what I did to take this out of here was I made this. Now, what I don't like about this is once you screw it in here, what I don't like about this is you take your punch, you come in, and what I was able to do was compress the spring just enough. On mine, the top of this spring, when it gets about level there, it does take pressure off that, but that does require a couple of people while you're doing this. You're tapping, not really the best approach in my recommendation to compress that spring. So anyway, so that's so there's your L.C. Smith single barrel trap. Beautiful gun, reassembled. All right, so I did redesign this as I mentioned previously here, and what I did was, instead of having that cable affixed here like this, it really is sort of a nuisance. So what I did was I redesigned it to where now then I can slip in and out underneath the hammer once it's down, and then just loop this over top of this top screw. so that now then once I've compressed the spring and released it, I don't have to cut this or manually open up the receiver to unloop this from the hammer. So anyway, that's just a quick update with regards to making that change there.